Automotive in South Jordan. I'm standing here today to talk to you a little bit about overheating. We're in the middle of summer and it's warm temperatures outside, and a lot of cars will overheat for various reasons, and I thought we'd discuss what those reasons are. Now, the biggest thing is you have to have coolant or antifreeze or some sort of water in your system. That's what transfers the heat from the engine out to the radiator and eventually into the air. So if the biggest cause of overheating is just being low on coolant. And the only way you can be low on coolant is if you have a leak somewhere. So the different possibilities of leaking are, a little hole in the radiator, maybe one of the hoses that aren't seating properly. Some of the other things that can cause it is a water pump, and this is a water pump here. You can see it has to pump as long as the belt is on and turning it. That's not what happens to water pumps. That's not what causes them to go bad. What happens is the seal leaks, and then it dribbles out this hole right here, and you lose coolant. And when the coolant gets low, then that's what causes the overheating. So it's not that the water pump stops pumping, it's that the coolant level gets low. So there's a number of things that can cause the overheating. Another thing that can happen is a car has head gaskets. This one happens to be out of a Subaru, not a Nissan like the car is, but you can see there's different passages, and the different passages have coolant or antifreeze that runs through them. And if they go bad, they'll dump either a little bit of antifreeze into the cylinder, or sometimes they'll drip outside onto the ground. But that's the problem that they have, and so that causes overheating too. And if it happens to breach into the cylinder, then as the car is running, it puts exhaust pressure into the cooling system, and that'll cause it to force the antifreeze out the radiator cap and even out the overflow sometimes. This being the radiator cap, it allows it, if anything pushes out, it'll push into the overflow. And if this fills up too full, then it'll even push it right out of that. So when that happens, you know you've got a big problem and it needs to be looked at. One of the things that can cause the air from not going through the radiator is that there's a bunch of blockage in front of it. So if you look here and you see a bunch of leaves and dust and stuff from cottonwood trees or whatever, and it's blocking the radiator, then you can bring it to us or even a self-serve car wash, and you can take that sprayer and clean it off. We also have a special air nozzle that fits down between the condenser and the radiator, and will blow all that out for you too. Because if there's something restricting the air, then it will cause it to overheat, especially going uphill on a hot day. So coolant loss is the biggest cause of overheating. But another thing that can cause it is that the fluid can't flow through the system. This is a thermostat, and you hear about thermostats all the time. What they do is they close, like this is right now with the spring down, and they block the coolant from flowing, and they're located in here. And it does that so that the engine will heat up. So as the engine runs, gets hot, the antifreeze inside the system gets hot. When it gets hot enough, usually about 180 or 190 degrees, this spring will contract, and it'll open up this passageway and allow the fluid to flow through the radiator and the rest of the system. So if you happen to get a bad thermostat, and any time a car overheats, the thermostat should be replaced, because they can go bad from overheating. So if the thermostat goes bad, then it'll not open up, and it won't allow the coolant to flow through the hoses or the radiator, and that causes a problem. Generally speaking, if the thermostat goes bad, it'll overheat very quickly. So you'll start it up, and within about 5 minutes, that car will be very, very hot. And so that's a sign of a failing thermostat. The third major cause of overheating is the electric fans or something in that system, because once the coolant is flowing and you're getting the heat transferred to the radiator, now you've got to get the heat away from the radiator and out into the atmosphere. And the way we do that is either traveling fast to where the air flows through the radiator and cools it down, or if you're stopped in traffic or you're going slowly, then the electric fans have to come on, and that's what cools the radiator down. Now there are sensors in the system like this that will tell the computer when it's getting too hot, and that computer will send the signal to the fan and turn the fans on, and therefore cool down your system. Sometimes the fans will run at different speeds. Sometimes one fan will be for the air conditioning, the other one's for the radiator. It just depends on the vehicle. But for sure, if you're showing overheating on the gauge and the electric fans aren't on while the car is running, then there is a problem. So as far as overheating goes, you know, normal for most cars is somewhere around a third of the way up on the gauge. Some cars don't have gauges, they just have a light that'll come on when it's overheating, but most of them now have gauges. And it's normal if you're pulling up a hill and it's real hot outside. It might go up just a little bit, but it really shouldn't go up past halfway or so. If it gets up there around 2/3, then it's getting too hot, and you need to get off the road and shut it down, because if you overheat it, that's what ruins the engines, and also it will cause the head gaskets to go out, and then that's an expensive job. Then you're looking at a couple $1,000 as opposed to maybe just fixing a hose or a electric fan or something like that. That may be the problem. That might be relatively inexpensive. So that would be our advice to you, is just to get to know your gauges, know what normal is when you're driving, and when something unusual happens, get over to the side of the road and let it cool down, and then get it repaired properly so you're not going to ruin the engine. Now, one thing we do when you bring it into our express loop and we change the oils, we check all the fluid levels, including the antifreeze. And the antifreeze on this car is pretty clean. It's a nice shade of green. The green is a standard antifreeze. If it's red or yellow, it's an extended antifreeze which will last longer. But all of them will get acidic after a while, and so we test it for you and can tell if it's time to change the antifreeze. But normally, every 30,000 miles for standard coolant, you'd want to change it, and about every 60,000 miles for the extended antifreeze, you'd want to change it. Now, the mileage they'll give you on the extended antifreeze sometimes is lifetime, other times it's 100,000 miles, but I really suggest having that replaced every 60,000 miles, because there's still contaminants that get in it, and it is what protects your engine from overheating.